Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Selma Avdic with the American Marketing Association, and I will be your moderator for today's webcast, which is in partnership with ARM Treasure Data and is titled Bringing MarTech and AdTech, Bridging MarTech and AdTech CDP Best Practices for Digital Marketers. All right. So before we officially get started, I do want to just let our audience know that this webcast is being recorded and will be available to you after the conclusion of the presentation. If you have any technical or content-related questions today, please feel free to ask them at any time. You can use our chat box that's located on the left-hand side of your screen. And you should see a line of widgets below your presentation screen, which includes the slides, handouts to download, speaker bios, and so much more. So speaking of our speakers, I am pleased to introduce our two speakers. We're joined by Henry Lee, who is the Director of Business Development for Digital Marketing at ARM Treasure Data. And he has also led mobile strategic partnerships at Nearstar, which is a leading provider of identity data management solutions for marketers. And we are also joined by Kevin Dunn, who is an experienced marketing technologist leader. And he has been in the industry, the MarTech and AdTech space, for over 10 years. And currently, he's leading LiveRamp's mission to being their identity graph beyond its ad tech foundation. And I do want to let our audience know that you can learn more about our speakers in our under our speaker bio widget. So to officially get started, I do want to turn it over to Henry now to start the presentation.
Thanks for the intro. I'm Henry Lee of ARM Treasure Data. Happy to be on today's webinar. So marketing and advertising technology has witnessed an explosive growth over the past decade. At last count, there are over 7,000 players in the broad marketing technology ecosystem. Each year, we seem to see the introduction of some new acronym, some new buzzword: CRM, DMP, DSP, SSP, CDP. Adding to this confusion, many players in this alphabet soup tech stack all seem to be doing the same thing. The recent flurry of startup and M&A activity has further blurred the lines between technology players. What will next year's buzzword be? We're taking bets now. No matter where you sit in your marketing organization, whether you're in advertising, customer acquisition, media planning, branding, creative, PR, content, or analytics, the goals are the same. Understand who your customers are and how to find more of them to help your business grow. The same principle applies to tech providers. Regardless of where you sit in the tech stack, your goal is also the same. Develop tools that help your customers better understand who their customers are and how to find more of them. Our goal today is to bridge together the worlds of MarTech and AdTech and help explain a relatively new player to the marketing technology stack, the Customer Data Platform, also known as a CDP. We'll talk about what a CDP does and how a CDP uses data to help marketers better understand who their customers are and how to find more of them. We'll also spend time talking about a key technology enablement piece that digital marketers need to make all this happen: identity resolution. Identity resolution helps bridge together the worlds of the known customer and the unknown prospect to help marketers find their target audience. We will talk about how a CDP like ARM Treasure Data works closely with identity resolution enablers like LiveRamp to help make marketers be more successful at growing their business. To set the stage, let's start with some marketing basics. There are 3 high-level goals of a marketer: maximizing reach, retention, and revenue. I like to think of this as maximizing the 3 R's. The first R is reach. How do I reach a large but targeted set of prospects who will eventually convert into a paying customer. Achieving reach means planning, launching, and optimizing marketing campaigns so that your target audience remembers who you are and will eventually buy your product or service. Think of ads on desktop and mobile, social networks, TV, radio, billboards, print, and direct mail. Traditionally, digital marketers rely on ad tech tools to help do this. When buying media across different channels, marketers rely on audience segmentation, targeting, identity resolution, measurement, and analytics tools to help deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. This is also known as your ad tech stack. Data management platforms, also known as DMPs, typically fall into this bucket. The second R is retention. Once you've found a customer, how do you keep that person happy and engaged so he or she will continue to buy more of your product or service? You can do this through targeted promotions, coupons, and offers. You can do this by providing rich and compelling content like blogs, videos, or white papers, or by offering personalized invitations to events or free trials. The third R is revenue. How do I get my customer or prospect to buy something? Making money, as we know, is the end goal of any business. Marketers rely on a variety of tech solutions to drive retention and revenue. They include content management systems for web personalization, marketing automation solutions to deliver personalized emails and offers, and analytics and A/B campaign testing tools. CDPs also fall into this bucket. We commonly call this the MarTech stack. As we know, the key to any business is customer growth. Let's say your company has a mission to grow its customer base 10x over the next 12 months. You've got 100,000 paying customers today, but you need to grow your business to 1 million paying customers by next year. And you've only got a fixed marketing budget to work with. You need to drive the most reach, retention, and revenue, but you need to do so as efficiently as possible. As we've seen, there are various tools that can help marketers plan, execute, and measure the right set of marketing campaigns effectively and efficiently. For the rest of this presentation, we'll talk about one area that's particularly important, the area of customer segmentation, audience targeting, and the marketing technology tools we need to make this happen. To be an effective marketer, you need to know your customer well. How does your customer interact with your product and service? How does your customer interact with your partner's business? And what does your customer look like in general? What are they doing when they're not on your website? What are they doing when they're not at your store? Customer and audience data is a critical piece of the technology stack. We commonly break this data up into three categories: first-party, second-party, and third-party data. First-party data is data you collect about your own customer, how your customer engages with your website, mobile app, or physical store. What do they click on? What do they buy? How often? And at what price? There are many different kinds of first-party data: web and mobile browsing history, purchase history, email and chat logs, customer support history, number of Facebook likes and shares, in-store dwell times, and store visitation frequency, just to name a few. Another important category is second-party data. Second-party data is essentially someone else's first-party data, data that a different company might collect about its own customers. This is useful if there's overlap between your customer data and someone else's target customer. Here's an example of second-party data in action. Let's say you're a marketer at Uber. You're launching a promotional marketing campaign for a new Uber-Spotify partnership. This service lets you listen to personalized Spotify playlists during your long Uber ride. Maybe some of you have even tried it. Now, you've already got your customer email list of frequent Uber riders, but how cool would it be to also have Spotify's customer list of their active Spotify subscribers? By having both lists, you can now target Uber riders who are also active Spotify listeners. That's your sweet spot. You would expect to see a higher subscription rate by targeting customers who use both Uber and Spotify services. In this case, Spotify's customers list would be considered second-party data for Uber. The final category is third-party data. Third-party data is inferred observations made about anonymized groups of people. This can include interests, brand and shopping preferences, behaviors, hobbies, and opinions about different population groups. This type of data is also known as psychographic or behavioral data. Third-party data is considered anonymized because it cannot be traced back directly to a particular individual, including your own customer. Let's dive a little deeper on third-party data and why it's so important. Third-party data helps fill in the missing pieces on getting a complete understanding of your customer, especially around who your customer is when they're not on your website and when they're not at your store. How is this done? Third-party data is built upon demographic building blocks. These building blocks collectively make up someone's profile. Demographic building blocks can include general categories that can apply to everyone: age, gender, household income, marital status, presence of children living at home, residential neighborhood type, like urban, suburban, or rural, and neighborhood cost of living. So what's the source of all this third-party data? Where does third-party data come from? Third-party data can be based on public records, census data, property ownership records, voter registration history are common examples. Data can also come from research studies, surveys, and records collected by companies, retail stores, market research firms, or focus groups. This includes purchase history, warranty information, customer surveys, and consumer panel studies. Data is collected, aggregated, and anonymized to create statistical inferences on different populations. Statistical inferences become the backbone of audience groups. Here are some examples. BMW drivers can be defined as suburbanites between the ages of 30 and 55 who have a household income above 100K. Soccer moms might be suburban women with children living at home between the ages of 30 and 45 with a household income above 80K. Other popular audience groups include young fashionistas or tech enthusiasts. There are literally thousands of companies that specialize in third-party data. They are sometimes known as data aggregators or data brokers. Third-party data is important because it lets you fill in the gaps on things you might not know about your customer. Most businesses can't interview all their customers, and most customers don't want to fill out long, tedious surveys. Bottom line, through third-party data, you get a more complete 360 view of your customer that first-party data alone does not provide. So we now have a rough understanding of first, second, and third-party data. While they're all useful in their own way, they become super useful when you can combine first, second, and third-party data together. Let's go back to our Uber example. Since we're launching a promotion for a new Uber Spotify service, your target customer would be frequent Uber riders who also subscribe to Spotify. Many of these customers also share the same characteristics as people who travel often for work. You might decide to launch an email marketing campaign to target this overlapping group, Uber riders who are also Spotify subscribers. But targeting your existing subscribers isn't enough. It won't move the needle. You need to grow reach. Your ultimate goal, remember, is to grow your existing user base from 100,000 to 1 million subscribers. By enriching your own customer data with third-party data, you see there's strong correlation between Uber riders and the audience frequent business travelers. So who are frequent business travelers? Let's see. They tend to be college-educated, male and females between the ages of 25 and 55 with a household income above 80K. This group of prospects would be most interested in trying out Uber and your new Uber Spotify offering. The process of finding your best target audience at scale is often called building lookalike audiences. To reach the target audience, it makes sense to launch omni-channel ad campaigns that can reach the most amount of frequent business travelers across different ad networks and media properties. Popular ad networks like Facebook, Google, The Trade Desk, and MediaMath allow marketers to define and target specific audience groups, including those that make up frequent business travelers. They may use location targeting to surface ads to business travelers who are presently at airports or hotels. They may serve ads on travel-oriented websites and mobile apps. By building lookalike audiences with third-party data, you can now serve ads to tens of millions of people who fit the profile of the frequent business traveler audience. Hopefully, a large number of them will end up trying out the new Uber and Spotify service. So we've talked a lot about why and how marketers can use a combination of first, second, and third-party data to reach their marketing goals. Let's shift gears a bit and talk more about the general mechanics of how this is done. First-party data is data that companies have about their own customers. While this may seem pretty straightforward, in practice, finding this data across your organization can be pretty complex and time-consuming. Let's think about it. Where is your customer data stored? Customer sales data might live in your CRM system. Customer store purchase records might live in your point of sale system. Customer web activity might be stored in your web server. Let's also not forget about established organizations that may have used different database systems and software throughout the years. Just knowing where to find all your customer data is challenging enough, but being able to stitch and merge together all available data about the same customer becomes even more challenging. How can you quickly piece together a single unified view of Joe Customer when different fragments of Joe Customer live in hundreds of different data silos across your organization? This is where a CDP can help. Also known as a consumer data platform, a CDP allows marketers to collect, unify, analyze, and activate data they have about their customers in a structured and centralized way. A good CDP like Treasure Data can do this quickly and seamlessly. It does this regardless of how much data you've got or what data silos all this data is stored in. Once all your known first-party customer data is collected and unified, you can then do all the fun stuff we just talked about. You can enrich your first-party understanding of Joe Customer with second and third-party data. And you can create lookalike audiences to find new prospects that look just like your favorite Joe Customer through different ad channels, display, mobile, social, video, etc. A good CDP lets you do all this. Making all this happen sounds pretty simple. In reality, however, there's obviously a lot of complex technology involved. Being able to bridge together known first-party data with anonymized third-party data is a critical piece of the equation. It's something that leading identity resolution providers like LiveRamp solve. I will now turn it over to Kevin Dunn of LiveRamp, who can share more. Kevin, take it away.
Thank you, Henry. Again, name's Kevin Dunn from LiveRamp, and wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the challenges of identity resolution. If you think about what Henry was talking about, when you're using a platform like a CDP or really any system of record, you have tons and tons of different identities for your consumer. If you're using multiple different marketing technology platforms, each of those have their own identity. If you have consumers who have moved, who have had multiple locations of work, or who have had multiple marriages or birthdays of children, there's a bunch of different data about that person that's constantly changing and constantly moving. And when you're trying to interact with them across, whether it's an offline touch point or an online touch point, all of those different touch points have a different way of identifying with those consumers. And that inherently causes a big challenge. Let's first think about the online side when thinking about identity resolution. There's over 5,000 different marketing technology platforms, hundreds of different channels that you can interact with your consumer on, and each of those have a different identity, whether it's a cookie identity, whether it's an email address, whether it's an IP address, whether it's a mobile identifier. And me as Kevin, I might use multiple different devices. That in itself is a huge problem in trying to find Kevin across that digital ecosystem when you want to interact with him in a targeted way. There's also Kevin in the offline world, which has a bunch of different sort of identifiers for Kevin, whether that's his name or postal address, whether that's his phone number, whether that's that he's moved 2 times and maybe I don't know about it. And when you are thinking about Kevin in that manner, it's hard to be able to connect those 2 different worlds. For a long time, marketers have sort of thought, well, MarTech's a very hey Kevin world, and AdTech's a very hey audience world. And LiveRamp really grew from how do we connect these 2 different worlds. So first, LiveRamp started with how do we take that offline data, bring it into a format that allows us to find them in the digital ecosystem. And we started building integrations from offline platforms to online platforms. And that allowed us to easily be able to say, hey, here's Kevin's email address. Where can we find Kevin's email address in the digital ecosystem? And how we do that is with a bunch of different partnerships, over 550 partners in the digital ecosystem that allows us to match email addresses with phone numbers, with name and postals, with mobile identities, all under a single unified identity. This is what we call our identity graph. Our identity graph is the third largest deterministic identity graph in the world, only pales in comparison to Facebook and Google, but is the only identity graph that's able to be used by marketers within their marketing technology stacks to sort of bridge these two worlds of MarTech and AdTech. Not only does our identity graph allow you to connect offline data to online data and do that people-based marketing, it really allows you to extend your tactics. So whether it's a reactivation campaign, a retargeting campaign, whether you're trying to find loyalty users who haven't interacted with you in a long period of time, it really gives you the ability to have that omni-channel experience across all the different places and touch points that you want to interact with your consumers. And again, this is all under this concept of a unified identity. So one identity, we call it identity link, that can be used by ad tech marketers, MarTech marketers to connect all of the different platforms that you're using. We're really excited in the context of using that with your CDP. So a seamless experience within a platform like Treasure Data where you can take audiences and segments that are based on PII or known powerful first-party data that you know about your consumer and immediately be able to distribute that across the entire digital ecosystem and find that person within that platform, whether that platform is Facebook or Google or YouTube or Instagram or Snapchat or any of the other thousands of programmatic platforms out there today. Not only does this identity graph allow you to understand who you're targeting, find them across all those different platforms, but it allows you to really understand your customer's journey in a cross-channel and cross-device manner, right? Because we've sort of spent all this time matching identities, underpinning those digital identities with offline identifiers and creating this powerful identity graph, we also allow you to understand when people interacted with certain content in certain channels, how that person got from one place to another because you have this ubiquitous identity. And what's really, really powerful is now that you have this unified identity, being able to pull it back into a system like Treasure Data to truly have closed-loop measurement. So fundamentally, we believe that by having a unified identity that connects PII and anonymous, or first-party data and third-party data, the known and the unknown, we believe that marketers now truly have the ability to have omni-channel targeting, omni-channel marketing, but also omni-channel measurement. And the power of Treasure Data plus LiveRamp really gives you the full depth and breadth of all the technology you need to have this golden record, this single view of your customer, this first-party understanding of your customer distributed across the ecosystem. So you can see here, using ARM and Treasure Data, you can collect all of that great first-party data siloed across different parts of your enterprise. Use ARM Treasure Data to unify that into a rich first-party identity. Use things like LiveRamp's offline identity graph to augment that with a bunch of rich third-party data. Say you want to fill in name and postals, or you want to know, if you have duplicate records of Kevin, which one is the most accurate version of Kevin. And once you have that rich golden identity, distribute it across all the different partners that LiveRamp has. So you can almost think about this experience of, I'm in my CDP, I'm segmenting and determining who I want to target, And not only now can I target them in offline channels like email and mobile push and direct mail, but I can also now send the same messages to the same people across any digital touch point that they might be interacting with me. And then pull that data back into Treasure Data to do that closed loop measurement that I'm talking about, where you can see our identity link tied to things like digital exposure data. And because you have all this rich first-party data inside ARM Treasure Data, like transactions, being able to tie digital interactions and ad exposures to offline transactions. Imagine the power of that in being able to attribute your digital ad spend to transactions for your business, truly showing which channels across all the different channels you're using, both on and offline, are driving the most revenue for your business. A little bit here about the data flow. And if someone could just move to the next slide, my button's not working. This picture here shows you the data flow that can sort of happen between an ARM Treasure Data and a LiveRamp. First, we take that PII and you onboard it into our platform. Through the APIs that make that sort of a seamless experience with your CDP, we immediately strip all the PII out of that data and append our identity link, so that ubiquitous identity that spans across the entire digital ecosystem. We can then immediately distribute it to one, what we call destinations, or many, many, many destinations across the digital ecosystem at one time. So there's a couple benefits, right, of using something like LiveRamp to go to all of these digital destinations, opposed to going to these digital destinations directly. The first is our identity graph. If you think about it, we have this massive, massive identity graph, the third largest, again, in the U.S., and it has a bunch of different areas of data about each person. It has email addresses, mobile identities, IP addresses, cookies. And when you run your first-party data through that identity graph, you're inherently going to have a higher match rate in finding more of your consumers in these digital destinations. And we have an industry-leading match rate when using our identity graph. The second is one-to-many, right? Upload your data once, immediately get that PII removed, and be able to distribute it to all the different places across the digital ecosystem, right? The third is we do it in a privacy-safe manner. We're compliant with all data regulations and standards, including things like GDPR and the upcoming California data privacy laws. And this allows you to feel really good that your PII is not going to all these different destinations, that is coming into LiveRamp for a very short amount of time, being purged, replaced with our ubiquitous identity, so really providing a safe haven for your first-party data. So with that, Henry, I think we can move to our takeaways.
Yes, so we've covered a lot today, but to quickly summarize, and I'll cover the first two, Kevin, here. So marketers need to use a combination of first, second, and third-party data to define their target audience and reach new prospects. CDPs allow marketers to seamlessly collect, unify, analyze, and activate all first-party customer data that may live in different data silos across your organization. And Kevin, if there's a couple takeaways you wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that one of the two things I want you guys to walk away with here is, one, that CDPs plus identity resolution partners like LiveRamp allow marketers to use the very powerful first-party data to do people-based marketing across the entire digital ecosystem. Really think about it as the power of the targeting enabled in things like Facebook, but across the entire open web, inclusive of Facebook. And also being able to use rich third-party data to immediately enhance those audiences before distributing them to any said destination. And also, we allow you to do that closed-loop marketing, being able to tie digital exposure data to offline transactions to have a true understanding of multiple channels and a cross-device journey of your clients and consumers. So with that, I think we're going to open it up for some Q&A.
All right, thank you so much to both of you. We have some great questions, so I'll go ahead and get started. And Michelle is wondering, shouldn't my agency of record be investing in a third-party data platform like ARM?
Yeah, great question. The answer, and maybe I'm just a little bit biased, but I believe yes. And here's the reason why. Agencies, they've done a lot for their clients, and I think the trend now is for a lot of agency clients to really think more about the technology stack, not simply just running media campaigns, but also how to best marry the data that their clients have with sort of the outside world, as we've seen in today's webinar. And so, a big differentiator for agency is how deep can they go in understanding and caring about their clients' data needs and the tech stacks that are just needed to best serve that. So I think by all means, agencies really should consider and at least take a look into what types of services a CDP can offer to their clients.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for that response. We have another question. This is from Abdelatif, and he is wondering, what are the most modern technologies that companies rely on in the field of digital marketing?
Yeah, that's another great question. I'll take a stab at it, and Kevin, feel free to chime in as well. There is a whole wealth of different types of technologies that the digital marketer can use. From the data management side, as we've seen, finding a way to really collect, unify, and take action for your company's data. And as we also seen, a lot of the features and functionalities, the digital marketer really leverages, really requires, specific tools and products and services that the tech stack provides. Content management systems, web personalization engines, data management platform services, even things more specific to, audience segmentation and targeting, measurement and attribution, analytics, everything that's done within the gamut of planning, execution, measurement, and optimization. Any type of technology that touches those four categories is really important. And also, of course, the technology enablers that really allow data to be unified together in a seamless way, like identity resolution and LiveRamp.
All right, great. And we have Shreyas, and the question is, where do CDPs fit into marketing automation providers?
Yeah, another great question. So CDPs, think of it as sort of like the hub of all first-party data that a company might have. And once you have all this data that's housed and unified and cleansed and accessible to all people in your organization, a CDP can then become an outlet of this information to external parties like marketing automation. So a good example could be this. You have a long customer list of everyone who's bought, a pair of sneakers at your store, and now you want to be able to do a remarketing campaign to your most valuable users, and you want to send this group of users a specific maybe offering, saying, hey, thanks for your loyalty. Here's a coupon for your next pair of sneakers, redeem here. And let's say you have another segment of, say, lapsed users, people who maybe bought your items maybe 2 years ago, but have kind of fallen off the map and you don't know where they are anymore. You still have their email address, but you want to be able to contact them and encourage them to re-engage and buy sneakers again. So you may send this group of customers another personalized email message which says, hey, we haven't seen you guys in a while, miss you guys, please come back and buy some sneakers. Maybe like give them a free pair just to sweeten the deal. But the idea here is a CDP allows the marketer to really segment their audience based on what they've done before, what they've purchased, what they haven't purchased, how long they've been engaged or disengaged for, and take action on this through marketing automation platforms to send personalized messaging. So really, a good way to think about it is a CDP helps you quickly identify, segment, and personalize messages to reach your right customers at the right time.
And the thing I would add too is, from a LiveRamp perspective, we're seeing some of our largest, most sophisticated marketing brands really move towards CDPs to help with the massive amount of MarTech and AdTech technology that they use to interact with their consumers. So, on average, marketers are using anywhere between 20 or 30 different applications, and that sort of keeps perpetualizing this sort of data silo of consumer data, and not really having a single place that you can have this sort of single identity or single source of the truth for your first-party consumer data. And so we see a lot of brands using CDPs as sort of this foundational, we'll call it a platform, underneath the rest of their marketing technology, where it's ingesting data from those platforms, to Henry's points, where it's pushing out that audience data. So there's almost this like single place where segmentation and audience creation is happening, which truly creates this sort of dream of omni-channel marketing by having sort of one place where you're doing segmentation, one place where you're doing distribution, but also allows you to, innovate and test different execution engines because you're not relying on them to be the system of record. You have this sort of system of record platform that's solely focused on being a system of record.
All right, thank you to you both. We have another audience question, and the question is if you can talk about the difference between activation and engagement and CDP platforms. You can provide more clarification.
That's a good question here. So engagement is kind of a marketing term. Engagement means how frequently does a customer interact with your brand, your company, your product, your service. That's engagement. Obviously, the more frequently somebody visits your website, the more frequently somebody clicks and takes action on your website to download something, to purchase something, to ask questions, leave comments. That is, a sign of a highly engaged customer. And the goal of any marketer really is to increase engagement. You want your customer to be really excited and active and really happy about your service. And like anything, the more frequently you see that, the more engaged that customer is. Activation is more like a mechanical term, if you will. Once I have data in my system, I want to actually do something with that data. I don't want it just to sit there. Maybe I've already done my analysis, but I want to activate that data by pushing it out. So in CDP land, when we think of activation, it means that I want to be able to do something with that data. It could be, I want to bring in third-party data from the outside world into my CDP and activate certain audiences to maybe serve, send out to, email, to serve email marketing emails out to people or to serve ads against. In this case, activation is really taking action on the data. In this scenario, it's really pushing data out so you can start serving targeted email messages or start serving targeted ads using that data. So that's really kind of the high-level difference between engagement and activation.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. We have an audience member. Her name is Rachel, and Rachel is wondering if you can provide some examples of what type of businesses can use a CDP.
Oh, absolutely. So, the good news is really a CDP can be used across, a variety of businesses. We are vertical agnostic, meaning whether you're a retailer, you're a CPG, you're financial services, QSR, automotive, any of a whole gamut of industries can use a CDP. I think the common denominator is an organization has a lot of data that's kind of housed all across your organization. The bigger and more complex and more fragmented the data is in your organization, the more relevant a CDP is in helping you out. ARM Treasure data, a lot of our customers are actually, large global brands, that actually have data scattered around throughout the world, different data silos. Think of different geographies, and they see a need to say, I don't have all day to find this piece of information about Joe customer, in this department, and another piece in a different department. I need to be able to quickly unify and stitch together everything I know about Joe customer, so I can do something with that information. I've got a holiday campaign coming up in 2 months. I don't have time to sort through all this data. I need to have a single source of truth for Joe customer. And that's what a CDP does. And the good news is that I think, every business, every enterprise across different verticals face the same challenge. That's about data collection, unification, and activation.
All right, thank you. And Ginny is wondering, what is the minimum an organization would have to budget for a CDP?
That's a great question. As I guess the short answer is, as CDPs, become more mature in the market, I think the CDPs can be applied to organizations of any scale. The price of the CDP really depends on a number of factors. Depends on how much data you've got, first of all, how many profiles you want your CDP to have of basically how many customer records you want the CDP to help house. Also, maybe how complex your data organization is, how many different data silos you've got. So, there is a variety of factors that goes into figuring out, what a CDP, will be priced at. But thankfully, I think it's pretty accessible for many organizations. There's not a one-size-fits-all, but happy to, please reach out to me or to anyone at ARM Treasure Data for more details.
All right, great. And we've actually had a couple of audience members that still would like some clarification between, a CDP and DMP. And I know that you had a great slide that kind of showed the difference. So would you mind just kind of clarifying again and going over like a quick overview of those differences for the audience again?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as you've seen, a CDP, the foundation of the CDP really is in collecting and unifying first-party data. And the first-party data that belongs to the customer lives in the CDP environment on a pretty persistent basis. The idea here is that the data is there, it's always on. The data can also be updated and refreshed as you get more customers into your system. So the idea is to have accessibility into your first-party data 24/7. That's what a CDP does. And CDPs really work off of known identifiers of a customer. CDPs house personally identified information, PII, first name, last name, phone number, email address. So we all call this first-party data. The DMPs, data management platforms, really focus more on anonymized identifiers, things that are not personally identifiable to any specific customer. DMPs are frequently used in the world of AdTech, Namely, I've got a list of customers, and I want to build lookalike audiences based on anonymized identifiers to serve targeted ads against on Facebook, Google, Trade Desk, etc. DMPs, typically fall into the ad tech realm, where you're not actually identifying and taking action on specific personally identifiable individuals. You're actually making inferences on who those people are and how I can reach out to them, through ad platforms and media properties.
Yeah, just to add to that from a LiveRamp perspective, right? As we partner with a lot of different DMPs. I think that to Henry's point, the biggest differentiator to think about as a CDP really is sort of this system of record for all of your marketing data built from the foundation of PII. So, really being your single source of the truth for your customer data. And a DMP's sort of traditional use case is audience segmentation and lookalike modeling of cookie data, right? So, broad-based of third-party cookies that, maybe want to reach out to people who have a propensity to buy electronics, right? So giving you that ability to use other people's data to sort of extend your reach. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but the primary way to think about the difference, I think, is a CDP can be a system of record. A DMP is traditionally used for audience segmentation and analytics for cookie audiences that you might want to distribute to paid media.
All right, wonderful. Thank you to both of you for providing those distinctions. We have a specific question about LiveRamp. An audience member is wondering, how long does it take to implement?
Sure. The great thing about LiveRamp, and one of our huge value props, is we've spent years and years now building all of these integrations into the digital ecosystem. And so whether you log directly into our user interface Connect, or you interact with us through a platform like Treasure Data, most people are sending audiences to their said destinations within the same day that they turn on their account to LiveRamp. So, the pipes are already set up. So once you sort of log in, you give us your audience, and within 24 hours, that audience is being distributed across the digital ecosystem.
All right, wonderful. Well, that is all the time that we have today for this presentation, but I want to thank Henry and Kevin again. Thank you so much for your time and for providing this great information. I also want to thank our audience for their great comments and their participation. And I want to remind them that this recording will be available after the conclusion of this presentation, so you'll be able to view this on demand and take additional notes from all of the great points that were provided. And also stay tuned for more webcast details from ARM Treasure Data via email. But I want to wish everyone a great rest of your day, and thank you so much again.